Thanks, Marshall. All right. Hi, everybody. Today is Wednesday, February 28th. My name is Alex Manriquez. I'm a data analyst at CSIS supporting CalPADS. Driving for us today will be Mr. Paul Higgins. And we're going to start off like usual. We are moving on to announcements now. I just have two announcements. One, as you know, final deadline for Fall 2 is still scheduled to be March 1st, which is this Friday, just 2 days away. SELPA approval is not required, but there also is no amendment window. So that is the final deadline for your data to be submitted at the LEA approved level. And then on to not so fun news. Well, yeah, extracts and ODS reports. Unfortunately, we've had issues with our nightly processing for the past 2 days. And as you are well aware, I'm sure at this point, the extracts and ODS reports are not available in CalPADS. FYI, whenever this happens, the best place to check is on the home page. We try to keep that as up to date as possible, and that is where you would find any updates with issues with processing extracts and all that. I am now going to pass the baton over to Marianne from CDE, if you want to
Yes,
go
thank
ahead.
you. Thank you. So I know there are probably a lot of questions and anxiety for some of you for Fall 1. We've had a lot of service desk tickets, and CSIS has been very good at alerting CDE to all the issues that you've been facing during this time. Currently, we still have the deadline as March 1. However, we are looking into all the different options. If we have any changes, we will alert you as soon as we have any changes, but at this time there are no changes. So please ask your questions now and make sure you get everything answered that you need if you have questions regarding Fall 2, because the deadline is pretty quick. And if, like I said, anything that happens, we'll send you a listserv message. We are going to be sending out a digest soon too. So anything or any changes will be given to you via communication, like a listserv message. So hopefully all of you are on the listserv, and if you're not, please sign up for it. We want to make sure that that information gets to you as soon as possible if there are any changes. I'm going to go ahead and put something in the chat, and that way those people that haven't been here right at this time can look at that and share that with whoever is not on this call. Okay?
Thank you, Marianne.
Thanks.
Angela, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about some of the bugs that are out there. The staff reports are having all kinds of variety of issues. So sometimes they're reporting last year's data, they're inflating FTE counts, it's doubling that FTE. Some of that was supposedly fixed on Tuesday, but we're sending stuff back. We're finding that there are still outstanding problems. And so we did hear from the developer this morning that they have a fix and it's in testing, and that one is Marianne, that one is going to be one we'll probably ask to get patched right away because it's causing a lot of confusion on those staff reports. And then I have another one that I sent up, but they have not logged a problem for it just yet. In online maintenance, when people are attempting to edit their course record, when you click post, it just spins. It's not actually posting. And so that you'll see that on the known issues shortly.
Thank you. If there's any other announcements from anybody else, let me know. But we're starting off with our questions now. And Ethan is kicking us off with Q1 saying, regarding problem ID 6802. Several of the people who I need to give permission to certify are having problems with the inflated counts due to this defect. They don't want to certify reports they know are incorrectly showing a much larger average class size or the wrong count of UC approved courses or inflated FTE to staff ratios, etc. I know the underlying ODS data is generally fine, but we're not certifying the ODS data. We're certifying the data on the reports and the information contained therein. And I presume the numbers we see on these reports are what will go to SARC, for instance, right? It would be very helpful if you could provide some language, a flash would be ideal, that could share with my certifiers to ensure that the STARK numbers will not be the same as the numbers on the defective cert reports, and we should certify even if they are wrong. If the STARK numbers are going to be the same as what's on the cert reports and they're rendering incorrectly, what should we do?
Okay, that question was entirely, can we chunk it? I'm sorry, Alex. So the
Yeah.
first portion,
Essentially, the
go
question
for it.
is it okay that we certify the data knowing that the reports are incorrect and there's inflated counts? Or should they hold off? Basically, they don't want, rightly so, right? They don't want STARK to be reflecting what the certified reports would show because they're incorrect.
I understand Ethan's concern. Ethan, I would say go ahead and certify your information. We are working on the back end because we know the error within the reports, and so your reports will be adjusted to reflect the correct information.
Although I would add, Sean, that we are expecting a patch for some of the staff reports. So Ethan, if you could just hang in there a little bit, we might get some of that resolved this week.
Thanks, Angela.
Yeah, and we also are able to link you to the known issues. So if you want it to be linked, you can send in a ticket and say, hey, can I please be linked to problem 6802, for example. And then that way you'll know when the fix goes in. We're going to move on to Soraya Q1. Can you please remind me which F2 report contains the columns that states yes, no, based on whether or not the course section has EL students enrolled? And Rebecca is saying 4.3. So try that one. I don't know off the top of my head.
It is 4.3. That's the only one, 4.3.
Okay. Hi, Brandy. Thank you. Alrighty.
No.
We're moving on to Rebecca from Lancaster Q1. I know CRSC 545F2 is only a warning, but do I need to concern myself with it? I'm using generic seed of 9s for a contracted teacher who is teaching students in a vacant position. Description states LEAs may not use seed equal to 9999 for non-college level courses. I would say that it would automatically trigger a misassignment with CTC with the CalSAS. So that is something that you want to pay attention to. Oh, she says we are preschool through 8th grade. But I believe that doesn't matter when it comes to CalSAS. It'll still trigger a misassignment for you because it's a generic seed. And so it is expected that you, even with contracted teachers, if possible, if you have their seed and their STEM information, that you would report that to us.
But the other thing that I would add, Alex, is that she said it was a vacancy. There's not there's not a contracted teacher there, meaning they're hiring somebody temporarily to come in and fill in. And so the vacancies are always misassignments anyway.
Okay.
So that's the only caveat I would make. As long as there's not somebody contractually in that position and it's vacant, then it's, whether you use a seat of all 9s or not, the vacancy would equal a misassignment.
Saying it's a contracted teacher for that vacancy. So, okay.
So
Either way,
if they've got a permanent hire in that position, they should try and use the seed.
Moving on to Anna from Santa Barbara. Question 1 says, I am already certified. This morning, I received a Cert 54. I have been waiting for a new snapshot so I can recertify. Will they be available soon? The snapshots they kind of have a mind of their own. It really depends on how long you've been inactive for, and by you, I mean your whole district, right? So I believe it's at around an hour and a half that CalPADS is expecting you to be idle. And then you get put in a queue. where you are waiting to get a revision started for you. And how long that takes will depend on how many other LEAs are waiting for a revision themselves. So it's hard to say exactly when you should expect it because there's just too many variables there. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add to that.
Typically, you should get it by morning to reassure you, like, will you get a snapshot? Yes, you will. Typically, you should get it by morning, and this is why we shut down partially CalPADS at 10 o'clock at night. If you don't get a revision by morning, by like 8 a.m., then yes, I would gladly recommend putting in a ticket and seeing if we can push yours somehow for a revision. And congratulations on certifying already.
Moving on to Sinyun from Danuba, Q1. Would you suggest correcting prior reported information or leave as is, even if I know they are incorrect? Prior reported, I'm assuming that means prior year data? Yeah, okay. We usually recommend that if you know that there's something that was wrong, that you go back and you fix that data because CalPADS is longitudinal, right? And so if you think about it, particularly for people or students that are in the cohort, for example, the cohort looks back 4 years. And so if there's something that needs to be corrected, it could impact your cohort outcome, right? That being said, though, my recommendation would be, are you certified for fall 2? I wouldn't recommend that you put that as a priority if you have a submission that you need to make a deadline for. But if you are fine and you've certified and everything looks good and now you're just wanting to clear up data from prior years, yes, you can go ahead and do that. Moving on, Daniela, Q1, how can we be expected to certify Fall 2 when 4.3 and 4.4 reports are showing bad data and Cert 54s are triggering incorrectly? Will these be resolved prior to Friday? Schools I work with do not want to certify if the reports are showing bad data.
This goes back to Ethan's question. I feel like in the beginning, and Angela answered actually already too. So yes, we are working on it. Yes, we are aware. As Marianne said, for those of you that don't know, Marianne is our CalPADS administrator. She's actually my boss. We are aware of the issues. Your certification for reports, if you'd like to hold off until Friday to see if that fix is implemented, yes, you're more than welcome to. However, we just strongly encourage that you are, 0 fatal errors in there and everything, and you're just ready to click that certification button come Friday then, if not sooner.
Rebecca, I see your question too, and we'll circle back. And Kara from Plaster SELPA Q1 says, I have been unable to create a SELPA level 16.21 monitoring report. Just skip the circle of death. It is not on the known issues list. Is this something you're aware of, or is it an issue on my end? Thank you. It is an issue. I believe we do have a known issue on that, but maybe we don't specify SELPA on there. Oh yeah, there it is. It just is just kind of hidden in there. But the 16.21 and SELPA 16.21 are not rendering for some LEAs. So if you wanted to get linked to that bug, Kara, I know that the developer is working on it. I just don't know if there's an ETA on that fix. Heidi from Antioch, Q1. How do I get another revision today, like right now, to see if the last of my errors cleared? It really feels like I'm losing valuable fixing time by waiting for another revision. Yeah, Heidi, that is tale as old as time, unfortunately, with CalPADS. It's a hurry up and wait kind of game sometimes. Like I mentioned, the revisions are solely based on when you became idle and then how many other LEAs are ahead of you in that queue to get a revision. What I can suggest, though, it depends on what kind of certification errors you're getting. If you're getting CDDs, which is certification data discrepancies, a cool way that you can check if the data discrepancies were cleared is if you go to the data discrepancies screen. The data discrepancies run separately from your revisions, and the data discrepancies usually run faster than the revisions do. And so what you can do is go to the data discrepancy screen within CalPADS and see if that revision has ran, or the DDs have run. And if there's no more data discrepancies, then you can be assured that when your next revision hits, whenever that is, you'll be cleared. But if, unfortunately, the CERT errors, the errors that start with CERT 1, 2, 3, etc., those won't ever show up in your data discrepancy. So it just really depends on what errors you're waiting to be cleared. But there isn't any magic button, unfortunately, that says, give me a revision right now. Gabriela, Q1. Where can we find last year's 16.3 reports? Is there a way to look at the historical reports? Yes, those you would need to go back into your certification detail screen. So if you go to your LEA approval certification details, change the year, the academic year on that to whatever prior year you want to look at. And then from within your certification details, you know, where you have your aggregate reports and your supporting reports, your old SPED reports, 16.1 through 3, 5, and 6 will be there. And then at 3:09, we have the message from Marianne just stating what she shared with us at the top of the call. So if you came in late and you missed Marianne's message there, that's at 3:09 timestamp. Asia, Q1. We certified Fall 2 already. Nevertheless, our superintendent received an email with a reminder for Fall 2 deadline. Did all superintendents receive this reminder regardless of whether their district already certified for Fall 2?
So there are two different messages that are going out. There is one that states at risk. If your superintendent received a message that stated at risk, that means because on Monday, as of 10 a.m., you were not certified. Okay, and so yes, you did receive, your superintendent would have received that at-risk message. The other message that is going out just states the normal, please ensure to certify by Friday, March 1st for your Fall 2, and then it also states the different consequences in which your LEA may assume by not certifying your Fall 2 data.
Rebecca says, hi, Brandy, we miss you. And
I miss you guys too.
Judy from Fresno COE Q1, where can I find a definition for each of the SPED program setting codes? The valid code combos and data guide only has a list of them, but not what they mean or how do they apply. And then right below that, we have Milo from CDE giving the link to the code sets. And Paul's showing us here the code set. So if you go and filter for program setting, you should see all of the codes that are available and the definition for each of them. And really definition for any code that we have in CalPADS you can find here. The other thing that I just want to point out is just make sure that you're looking at that last column, column G there, and the end date, make sure it says NA because you don't want to be using a code that's been retired. Okay, we answered Rebecca's. Clarissa from Clarissa Q1. Looks like the admin and then create new user functionality is down. I've tried a few times throughout the day. Is that the case? And yes, and Angela posted the defect that we have. We just created that, I think, yesterday. which is PM 6803. Moving on to Eric from SMUSD Q1. If we make changes at 9 a.m. and we don't get a new revision until the following day, this means that all of our errors have to be cleared by tomorrow at the latest so we can get a revision on Friday. Please keep that in mind, as many of us had to work on the CRDC reporting that fortunately and unfortunately, the deadline was extended. I was so angry that we were told that there was not going to be an extension, so we put all our time on CRDC to meet the deadline for them to change it. Now we have very little time to work on Fall 2. Please don't make a decision on the last day of the window. Don't put the stress on us. We have to know now if there is an extension so we can allocate our resources accordingly. And now for my question. I am getting a Cert 53 warning, teacher staff assignment missing, but there is no SSID. Seed local course. It only shows the district name. We do not have any students or courses at the district level. I can safely ignore, right?
Yeah, there
Yes.
isn't any seeds because there are no teachers there to report. So it's just giving you a heads up that one of your quote unquote schools didn't have any teachers. So if you don't have any at the district office, that's fine.
And that's a warning. Just so you guys are aware, make sure you're looking at your warning versus your fatal errors. Your fatal errors will block you from certification. Your warnings will not. And sometimes warnings are, again, they're just warnings, but they're very valid.
Moving on to Nalissa, Q1. Is there anything in writing that states that all users in our LEA must refrain from using CALPADS in order to get a new snapshot? I don't know if we have that in writing.
No, there is no written documentation on that. It's just a known kind of entity. And for historical reasons, I can speak to this one as a user. One, did I limit CALPADS access? Yes, I did, because that was what the CALPADS LEA ad meant. That was under our preview when you sign the contract, to know how many users are there. Did I put out like all messages because I knew that these days were time sensitive, that yes, you know, please make sure that you're logging out of CALPADS, because again, CALPADS should only be open if you are actively using it. So if you're abiding by those rules that are within the contract, then yes, you are able to get back a snapshot or a revision, not a snapshot, you're able to get back a revision sooner. So is it explicitly outlined the way that you've just asked? No, it isn't. But does it meet our business requirements within the actual CALPADS contract? Yes, it does.
Next we have Diane, Q1. What is the quickest fix for SCSE 0139F2 errors? Do we just go off of flat 147? I'm not sure what that last part means. But SCSE 139, I believe, is the orphaned student course sections.
Yeah, it's the unattached ones that aren't tied to any CRSE data.
The quickest fix, I mean, I think it just, you need to do a little bit of digging. Oh, sorry. Okay, so she says, sorry, meant flash 147. Okay. I'll have to look at flash 147 and see what it says. But the data, or sorry, the validation hasn't changed. So I'm pretty sure that guidance is probably still true. We'll check. Essentially what that means is you've given us a student record, a student course section enrollment, but the parent course section doesn't exist in CALPADS. And so what we see is that you recently submitted a course section file. Oh, 247. Okay. So Flash 247. But what we usually see is that you've submitted a CRSC file, which is a full replacement file, and your most recent course file didn't have a full set of your sections. And so what you've done is you've removed whatever was existing in CalPads with that new file with the full replacement. And so now you've created orphan records. That's usually when we see a large chunk of errors all of a sudden.
One other flavor of that though. I saw that all the names and stuff matched up, but the academic term codes are different.
Yep.
And when that happens, it breaks that connection too. So you just enrolled the kid into the full year version, but you uploaded the CRSE version as semester one. So it doesn't jibe. So when you open it up in the SCSE container of the student, that section pulls up and says, warning, we can't find this course. And it's just, you need to go back in and identify which is correct and correct either the CRSE data or the SCSE data.
So I don't know that it's a fix, like a quick fix, because I think it just depends on your scenario, right? Is the course section missing altogether, or is it that there's some fields that are mismatching between the two records? And so that'll determine what you need to do to fix the error.
I was multitasking a little bit, so I apologize if I'm repeating you, Alex, but usually the first thing I do is go to the course screen in online maintenance and do a quick search on the section ID that I found on the certification details. Because sometimes it is there, like Alex said, and sometimes it's not. But if it's not there, that's your answer. You need to submit the course section record for that class. Sometimes it is there, and that's what Paul was saying. Make sure the attributes are all the same between the students and the course record.
See, you weren't snoozing, you listened.
Yeah, I was half listening, but I was also, I'm working on the patch, so hang in there, you guys, it's coming. So yeah, I was half listening, but who was it that was asking that question?
Diane.
So if you get stuck, Diane, that one is kind of tricky. So if you need help, just put in a ticket and we'll step you through the process.
At 3:16, Marshall just posted the copy pasted the message that Marianne had shared with us earlier. So just in case y'all came late, that is at the 3:16 timestamp.
Yeah, and Alex, I posted several times in there as people came through. So if you see it, you can just jump over it.
Sounds good. Thank you. Ethan, I see your question too, and we'll circle back. Chris, the Q1 says the certification reports cannot be relied on to be accurate, but we still have to certify by Friday. I know how you hate extensions, but, and it says, never mind, this has been answered. Yes. But we are trying to get a patch ASAP on that. Larney, Q1. Can I get some clarification on the resource teacher state course code 9231 reporting? I understand that SCSE is not required. With that being said, is the idea of this reporting to show that every SPED student is assigned to a qualified resource teacher? So if a SPED student has 4 different classes in one school, does this mean 4 9231 sections, 1 corresponding resource section for each class they are taking, or 1 9231 section for 1 resource teacher, which will cover all the classes for that 1 SPED student? Also, if that resource teacher has a SPED student number 2, do we need a number 2 section as well for that one, or the 19231 for this resource teacher cover all the SPED students they are servicing?
So ideally what we would want to see in this situation, so I think what you're talking about in this scenario is that the resource teacher is actually pushing in to the student's classroom and providing support within each class. We would not expect to see a section for every class that this teacher is pushing into. We would expect to see 1 section for the teacher, 9231. And then if you choose to attach a student roster, you would attach all students that teacher is providing support to. across all of the students' respective courses. But 9231, as long as you assign a job classification code of 27, which is pull out, push in, itinerant, then you're not required to attach a student roster.
And we're moving on. Asia has clarification. Just wants to know the email to our superintendent was sent to him on February 23rd. It's not an at-risk email. So did this email go out to all districts? And I believe so, right? I think Sean mentioned that there were two separate ones. One was generic. This is just what will happen if you don't meet our deadline. And then there was one targeted email that said your district is at risk. So if you just got the generic one, then that went out to everybody.
You're correct, Alex. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Chantel from Heritage Peak Charter, Q1. Does idle mean only working on changes for certification or all work in CALPADS? For example, if my registrar exits its student, will that restart my idle time? And then, so idle also means everyone signed out of CALPADS. No, you don't need to sign out. You can be in there. You can look at whatever you want. It just means posting in any kind of data, right? So if your registrar or you yourself are doing something that's outside of Fall 2, like an enrollment, for example, it'll still, CALPADS will still consider that a change, right? It'll try to, it'll cut into your idle time, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, think of it as your computer going to sleep. Every time you bump the mouse, it resets the clock and it starts thinking that, oh, you're still there. Sorry, won't go to sleep yet. And then you don't touch it, you don't touch it, you don't touch it, it finally goes to sleep. Same thing here.
Yeah.
And by the way, there are discussions about adding an on-demand button so that you know, you can make your changes and then say, okay, I'm done. Click the button, give me a new snapshot. So that would be an excellent feature to have down the road.
Moving on to Lily, Q1. For clarification regarding users to refrain from CALPADS in order to get a new snapshot. In previous meetings, I thought it was explained to not upload or make changes in CALPADS while waiting for a new revision. But the answer that was given today is that we cannot be logged into CALPADS at all while waiting. No, and I'm sorry if that was the impression I gave. It doesn't mean that you need to log off CALPADS. It just means you shouldn't be making any updates to CALPADS. Moving on to Fabiola, Q1. Good afternoon. I have certified for Fall 2. Should I decertify and wait to see if the reports that have errors correct by Friday's deadline?
No, I wouldn't encourage that. I mean, if she's got to decertify, if she's decertifying to ensure that her 4.2 looks correct. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, to decertify to see if the reports that have errors would be corrected before the Friday deadline.
I wouldn't chance that. I would say if you're going to decertify, if the issue has been resolved as of Friday, yes, go ahead and decertify then. But decertify now, no, I wouldn't advise that. Angela or Martha, if you have other recommendations.
Yeah, if it were me, I would just stay certified and then check on Friday. And if I liked my Friday reports better, then I would decertify and approve the newer revision.
And Robin makes a good point there, answered with you can still keep an eye on your revised uncertified, even if you are already certified, right? You just have to toggle between your LEA approved to revised uncertified in your certification detail screen. And thank you, Robin, for posting the YouTube video. So if you are unfamiliar with how to toggle between revisions, we have a YouTube video that goes through that and shows you how you can be working with your revised uncertified, even though you are already LEA approved.
You're somewhat internet famous, Alex. I think that's our most watched video.
Let's see. Shayna from Simi Valley says, "Hi, Brandy. Q1. Flash number 201, page 10." Wow, that was a long flash. States tips for reviewing report 3.8. Special education managers should verify alternate special education placements in the classroom. My assistant superintendent of student support said we no longer use alternate placements on IEPs. Can you confirm this? And if correct, is there communication somewhere about this? And then it says, to further clarify my question, I am sending out obsolete instructions on how report 3.8 should be reviewed by students. Am I sending out obsolete instructions on how report 3.8 should be reviewed? And I see Brandy replied. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I did respond, but I just wanted to say, so alternate sped placements, that guidance didn't change. Meaning, IEP teams have the discretion to make and place students based on IEP team decisions, right? So, and what that means is that sometimes a student will be placed in a classroom where the teacher may not have the appropriate authorizations for their primary or secondary disabilities. And that is at the discretion of the IEP team. That hasn't changed. Now, whether or not your superintendent or your local board or your LEA has policies against making alternate sped placements, that's another issue. So you might want to check with your assistant sup to see about that. But with respect to how that report should be reviewed, I mean, folks, what we're trying to say in that particular set of guidance is we're trying to give you a heads up when there might be an indication that data are going to trigger an exception in CalSAS. Okay, so just remember that when you're looking at students with disabilities, if they are in a special day class, okay, a special education setting, and you identify that class as 700, when those data go over to CTC, and in CalSAS, what it's looking at is this a special education setting? And does that teacher have the appropriate credential and authorizations to provide services to that student based on their primary disability? That's what it's been doing. Okay, so in the cases of alternate sped placements, the teacher may not have the appropriate authorization. So you just want to be able to have that information ready to provide your monitoring authority to say this is an alternate sped placement. So that you still need to take a look at that. If your district is not doing alternate sped placements and you see that there's a student with a specific primary or secondary disability, and the teacher assigned to that class does not have the appropriate authorizations, just know that that's going to flag an exception in CalSAS. That was the point of having you look at that. So either way, you should still look at it. The guidance still holds.
Yep. Move on now to Anne from Alameda, Q1. We are running into issues with the mapping of the student offense codes for my SIS to CALPADS due to the fact that sometimes there are two CALPADS student offense codes that refer to the same ed code. For example, 400 and 401 both refer to ed code 48915C4 and 489DN. I am asked to create new student offense codes in our SIS for more severe offenses that would trigger a possible or mandatory expulsion, but the mapping to the CalPADS student offense code won't work if a code refers to multiple ed code sections, one in the 48900 range and one in the 48915 range, more serious, such as code 600, or if there are multiple codes for the same ed code sections. I'm not sure where the question is.
So these seem more SIS related questions to me, Alex. So yes, your mapping for your SIS should be accurate. yes, it should only be one mapping per that code that's utilized. So it seems like maybe you've broken down the ed code into some subcategories that aren't fully accurate, and you might need to combine. But again, that's going to be a local decision for you all to determine which codes should be mapped where, as they're stated in your SIS system. Since it is mid-year though too, I definitely recommend consulting your SIS before remapping, just to ensure that all your data is going to continue to flow smoothly.
Thanks, Sean. Moving on to Derek, Q1. How should we report itinerant or push-pull staff assigned to and providing instruction at independent self-reporting charters? So I think I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. So these are staff that are employed by your LEA, but they're providing instruction in a different LEA, in a self-reporting charter? Yes, okay. And this, I think, falls into the same vein of, for example, COEs, right? That they employ the staff, but the staff actually go out into different districts and they do their teaching at the other districts. My understanding is for CalPADS, we want to know at the district where the staff is teaching the assignment. We're not necessarily wanting to collect who is employing the staff. It's more of in your district, who is providing services and who is providing instruction to your students, even if that teacher is not contracted by your LEA, or if it's, a third party staff. And so in your scenario, you're the contractor, right? You're the LEA who's contracting the staff, but they're being reported elsewhere. I don't know if Sean or Brandy, you have other ideas of how they could report it, but I mean, is it even needed?
Sorry, I tuned out because you were answering the question. Sorry.
It's okay. It's a scenario where either at the CRE or at the LEA level, they contract the staff, but the staff is actually providing instruction at a different LEA.
Yeah.
And so the LEA that contracts the staff doesn't need to report the staff because the LEA where they're providing the instruction should be reporting that staff.
Correct. Yes. So if you're contracting a teacher, even though the teacher's actually technically employed by the LEA, because they're itinerant and they're going out to the sites, we want to see them reported at each site they serve.
Correct. Okay. Yeah. So Derek, in this situation, you wouldn't need to report it. You would just make sure that the charters are the ones that are reporting that teacher as a teacher of record. Heidi says, yeah, I'd like to vote yes on that on demand button, please. Yeah, I know. We all do. Marissa, Q1. Does posting the SPED files transactions to CalPADS affect the idle time for revision population? Yes, it does. I mean, really, guys. Oh, yeah. It's any posting. It's any change, any new files that are being uploaded, CalPADS. It's just like Paul mentioned, right? It's you're moving that mouse. You're not letting the computer go to sleep. So, let's see. Mary, Q1. Charter schools don't have our own access to CalSAS, and we have to rely on our authorizing districts to clear misassignments and vacancies for us. Over the years, using CalPADS error as a reason for misassignment or vacancy have been phased out, and our authorizers will not allow us to use this anymore. Is there any way you could communicate to all the monitoring authorities that getting the data right and correct can actually be due to CalPADS error, given the fact that there has been so many issues with reviewing accurate data, especially in the 4.3 reports? It would be great to give the monitoring authorities a heads up that on the CalPADS side, it's been a challenge to get clean data to review. And because we had to meet the deadline, there really could be CalPADS errors as a reason for any bad data.
So
I'll put that one in as a ticket and we can take that one under review.
okay.
Thank you.
So Mary, if you could please submit that as a ticket and we can escalate that. Let's see. Divya from Heart Ransom Q1. How do we report our speech teacher who does not have a seed? Well, if they don't have a seed, you can't report. Unless, Brandy, do you know of any other way?
No.
No.
They have to have a seed in order for you to report them. I mean, they can actually get a seed by applying for a certificate of appearance through the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, but because there's a cost with that, we can't mandate it, right? So, you can get a seed for the person if they do that.
Okay, and Anne, I see your follow-up. We'll treat that as a Q2, 349. But we're going to move on to Q2s, and we're starting off with Rebecca at 305. If I can find it. Here we go. 305, Rebecca, Q2. Will there be an extension for fall 2? And I believe that Marianne's comment at the top of the call answered that, right? We're taking it all into consideration. We're trying to make sure that we can get these patches in. But if there is any messaging or anything that comes out of that decision, it will be messaged out in writing in the listserv. So no news yet. Next, we have Ethan at 316. And Q2 says, can I email Sean or the support line summarizing today's comments about certify even if the data on the reports is incorrect and get a response back confirming that's the official CSIS guidance?
That's not our official guidance even. I think Angela restated it again. If you are able to certify, we highly recommend that you certify. If you're waiting on your revisions, the report revisions to come through for Friday, you can decertify and then recertify for that. We do have a transcript of this meeting, and I would definitely, for this instance, feel free to go ahead and pull the transcript for me, and you can say that Sean Walker said it.
And then our last Q2 was at the bottom from Anne, 349. It's part 2 of Q1. It says, what's the difference between Student Offense Code 400 and 401? If we have 2 different offense codes in our SIS for robbery and extortion, one for 48900E and another one for 48915 AD, or more serious, should I map both of them to the CalPADS code 600? Will it cause issues in CalPADS? So let's take a look. Paul's taking us to the code set, and we're going to look up the offenses. 400 and 401. Sexual battery and sexual assault.
I think the penal code descriptions of sexual assault and sexual battery are different. And I think that's the issue. So you'll see that the penal code defines sexual battery in section 2.243.4, whereas sexual assault is defined in different sections of penal code. That's the distinction.
Thanks, Brandy. And then I think the other part of that was if we have two different offense codes in our SIS for robbery and extortion, can they both be mapped to code 600? Will it cause issues in CALPADS? No, I don't think it'll cause an issue with us. To us, it'll just look like you had two different incidents with the same offense, with robbery and extortion. Locally, you've tracked that distinctive, right? But to us, it just means two incidents with the same offense. Next we have Suzanne, Q1. Do you know yet if any state course codes that are active this school year will retire next school year? Oh, not that come to mind.
We haven't. I think you said it was Joanne. Thank you so kindly. We haven't gotten that far yet. Typically, we will announce those in the May regionals, and then also communicate it out in flash messages as well, closer to end of year.
Mary Masters, Q1. Will it generate a CalSys error if a staff is assigned as a percentage admin 10 and a percentage teacher 12 in the same school? I don't think so, right?
No.
So long as they have the right credentials for each?
Well, a CalSys error.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it'll generate an exception if they don't have an admin credential or they don't have a teaching credential. So the assignment code is what's going to trigger it. But generally, those that fall under the admin classification are going to require an admin credential. So as long as the staff person has both of those types of credentials or authorizations, you're okay.
I just want to note, if you're a charter school, please make sure you're looking at the correct descriptions, because they expand beyond just admin and the job classification. No, it's a job assignment. Brandy, which one? Job assignment or job?
You're talking about charter school director versus administrator?
Yes, the one that says like not a charter school admin, not certified or something.
Oh, yeah. There is the non-certificated charter school administrator, and that's, I believe, job classification code 25, I believe.
Thank you. So just make sure if you're a charter school that you're looking at the correct job classification code.
We have Q2 from Mary Masters says, we started reporting the non-classroom based assignments for program coordinators, which are teachers in roles like college connections and EL coach at 60-30, which generate misassignments. What code should be used? I think maybe she meant 60-20, the other code.
Do we have a 60-30? That is 60-30. So these sound like TOSAs. They sound like teachers on special assignment. And if they are, use the TOSA code, which I think is 6028. The site level program coordinator, is that what it is?
Uh-huh.
So, okay, just keep in mind that the teacher has to be on a local assignment option. I think it's, I can't remember what it is. But if you go to if you take 60-30 and you look it up in the required, the CTC's correct assignment codes. If you look it up on that website, you will see what the commission is looking for. And very likely if it generated a misassignment, it's generating that misassignment because the teacher doesn't have the required credential or authorizations. So, but most likely it might be because they weren't on a local assignment option. I'm going to try and look 60/30. Let me just look it up real quick. 6030. Oh, it's not even in here. They haven't added it to the oh wait, no, I take that back. Hold on. Okay, so it says CalSAS checks against, and I'll type this, I'll put this in the chat, but it says CalSAS checks against credential requirements of Title V 80020.4.1a, which means they have to be on a local assignment option. It says that if individual is assigned based on holding a valid administrative services credential, CalSAS users may determine exception as appropriate assignment. So basically they can be a teacher, but they have to be on a LAO of 80020.41.1a. That's probably why it generated a misassignment.
We're gonna move on. We're at 4 o'clock, but I'm gonna keep going until my bosses say otherwise. We have Ethan's Q3 says, sorry, now I'm more confused. Should we certify if we can? So we should certify if we can, but if the reports are incorrect, then we should not certify. And we should wait for new snapshots on Friday, the deadline day, when presumably a patch will have been implemented. And if a patch is not available, then I should try to get emergency same-day certs on that deadline day when we haven't had any sort of time to review the data on them.
Okay, so Ethan, if you are submitting up clean data and you have reviewed your data, okay, just in the Excel file, the text file sheet, then yes, please go ahead and certify. Okay, the reports provide you with an additional view of your data. That's what the reports do. And so they allow your other colleagues as well to be able to see the information correctly. We have a patch that we are trying to implement, okay, for the report for fall 2. However, if you are positive that you have put up your best and clean data, which is what that certification button states, it says, to my knowledge, I have put up the most accurate information, then yes, please certify. Okay. If you would like a different report because you realize that some of the reports that are generating back currently have incorrect or not the best or not the most accurate information, then yes, please decertify after the patch has taken place and then recertify. I hope that clears up any confusion for you. Again, our goal is to have everyone certified by fall 2. You don't land into any other parameters. Okay. And so I'm going to open this one back up. I believe Marianne is still on the call. If I've stated anything incorrectly, any of the sneeze, please correct me.
We're going to move on to Rebecca's Q3. Says, who or what position or department in a district is supposed to determine teachers' FTE? Our HR department said they do not do anything with this. They said our position control is who they go to when they hire a new teacher and they get flagged that they don't have enough FTEs, whatever that means. It says part 2. The reason I'm asking is because they tend to have principals oversee study or office aid classes and give assignments or grades. So I wanted to know what the FTE percentage above their admin assignment was, and they didn't know how to give me that info. I ended up excluding the course section from reporting since I found it on the user manual that I could exclude these classes. I mean, I always went to my HR department when I was at the district level. I don't know, Sean, if you have other suggestions for how to get FTEs.
I agree with you, Alex. It should be your HR department that is dictating to you all the FTEs. However, I think in this instance you answered part of your own question. Since those classes may be excluded, then you don't have to report those administrators and an additional assignment. And so maybe that is the viewpoint and where your credential analyst or HR department is viewing it from. And I believe there's just a disconnect in wording, and possible wording. So I would check back in with your local offices and just provide simply the information that you provided us. And it might just be a yes or no to that question there.
Q2 from Clarissa says, for exit code E230-360, what does it mean that the student completed high school but not a grad? Can you give some scenarios for its use of the 360 code that is not related to student being 18 years old? Well, for example, I mean, it doesn't mean that the student was 18 necessarily, right? The student could have been 17. They were a 12th grader and they didn't meet all the required credits to be a high school grad, and they're not going to continue on. They just didn't meet the requirements, and they don't care to continue on to try to meet the credits. And so that student would be a 360 E230 360 code. And Rebecca, I think you said kind of the same thing I just said. So hopefully that helps, Clarissa. And I think that's it. We're going to do one last question from Derek. It's a follow-up on the Q1. It says, if the contract employees working at independent charters are working at multiple different LEAs, should we coordinate with each of them to let them know which percentage FTE they should report, or should they each report 100 because it's based on the FTE at each LEA?
I think the validation is of the 200% is per LEA. So you can have more, I mean, each LEA can have more than can report 100 each, and there's no validation for that to when you add the totals.
But in terms of guidance, if that person, their 100% FTE at the district is split between 5 different schools, then the FTE at each site should reflect. I understand that it's not validated if it's an independent reporting charter, right? But if it's split between 5 schools, then the FTE at each school should reflect that teacher's specific percentage of their FTE at the district site. So if they're split evenly 5 ways, it would be 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20.
So I guess, Derek, if you can coordinate with them, I think that's the best guidance, right? Best way to move forward. However, if they decide not to follow that advice and they wanted to do a 100, it won't impact you and they won't get an error. But if possible, split it up. Yeah, 5 LEAs, throughout the 5 LEAs, yeah. All right, folks, thank you so much for hanging in there. It's a little bit rocky, but we'll get through it. If you need our help with any Fall 2 issues, please send in a ticket. As we mentioned, we're going to be considering everything, all the errors, all the reports. And if there are any announcements, we'll make sure to put that out in a listserv ASAP. All right. Talk to you next week.